welcome back to the Coruscant Knights podcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Cooper. Alongside me, as always, is Jack. And today we are discussing our top three favorite battles in Star
Mm,
Wars: Rebels versus Empire, Separatists versus Republic. It doesn't matter. We're going to chat about it today. If you are longtime fans of the show, you will know that we did a similar video with lightsaber battles
hmm
at the start of this year, or maybe the end
Yep.
of last year, and that was good fun. And we're going to do a similar style where if one of us says a battle that the other one has in their list, we're just not going to mention it again. They got to pick another one.
hmm
So this is going to be really good. There's some really good battles across the live action and
Oh yeah.
animated front. So this will be a good discussion. And just before we get into it, a reminder to follow us on social media at Coruscant Knights. A special thanks to our patrons who make these videos possible. We appreciate you all. And if you want to learn more, head to the link in the description, or you can use the QR code on the screen. And I think that's everything I needed to mention off the
I think so.
checklist.
I'm
So,
pretty
all
sure.
right. We did chat before the
Yeah.
podcast. I've been elected to go first, which I feel very honored by. And there's a lot of pressure because there's some really
Some.
good battles
Yep.
in Star Wars, as I mentioned before. But with my first selection, I think this is undisputed, right? You think of live action battles, it does not get any better than the Battle of Scarif, right? It
There it
is
is.
by far the best looking, the best action, the best culmination of everything that you can get in a battle. It
hmm
is like taking the best bits of Star Wars and putting them in this high stakes environment on
hmm
this gorgeous planet.
Tropical
And what I
beaches.
love about this battle more than I was thinking about it last night, what I love
Mm.
about this more than everything is that you have three levels of the battle. You have the ground warfare and
hmm
the stuff going on. You have the combat in the air with the
Yep.
TIE fighters and stuff. And then you have the stuff going on above the shield, the like with the capital ships.
Yep.
But within those, there's all these little plots going on. You
Factions.
need to
Yeah.
connect the thing to the tower to be able to get the transmission up. They're infiltrating, they're trying to get the plans. It's
Yeah.
perfection.
Yep.
It's so good. And we get so many like new Imperial designs with the
hmm
Death Troopers and the
The
Shore
shore
Troopers, and they look
troopers.
fantastic. You get
Yep.
some of the best AT-AT action I've ever
Yep.
seen in Star Wars. Like I said at the start, it looks gorgeous.
hmm
Scarif is such a beautiful planet.
Mm.
And my God, it's perfect. It is the best Rebels versus Empire battle in
Yeah.
Star Wars. You cannot change my mind.
Can we solely agree that this is probably the best battle of all
Oh
time
yeah,
for stars? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah. I think honestly I agree with Cooper. That was one of mine that I was gonna say, but I was hoping someone would because obviously it is one of the best battles of all time, just
absolutely.
solely what Cooper said.
Hmm.
So very much commend you on that. However, I am a bit salty. So
It's all right. You might take mine.
I'm going to take, in my opinion, the greatest animated battle of all time, which is the Battle of Umbara. It has to be. It has to be. So we've mentioned somehow in any sort of podcast we talk about, this somehow gets brought up like almost every time. It's like one
Yep.
of those things like we mentioned The Last Jedi and Battle of Umbara. Those two things are just reoccurring like themes and things that we like to refer back to. And I think single-handedly why the Battle of Umbara is really good is because it's almost the complete opposite of Scarif, if you think about it. It
Yeah.
is dark, it is grimy, it is a not the most visually appealing kind of battle, but that's what makes it so good. Is
Mm.
how scary and ominous and mysterious it kind of feels when you're watching it. It feels like you're with the troopers in kind of the midst of everything. And it's just so frightening and how any at any point in time you did not know even if Rex was going to be that really that safe in
Yeah.
that kind of battle and everything. And I think how the whole outcome of Ponkrell and all the deception that was going on is just so peak Clone Wars. And I think that episode alone, or the whole arc of the battle, is single-handedly why we love the clones so much, on
Mhm.
how they had their personalities, how they stood up to kind of, um someone of a higher authority even, and just showed their dominance on the field. And I think just the absolute like the visuals of just the lasers going,
Oh,
flying
yeah.
through and people getting collapsed, and it just felt so that was the most connection to real world, I feel. Like,
Okay.
how everyone says, oh, how George Lucas said all the dogfighting and stuff back in The New Hope was inspired by the Vietnam War and all that kind of stuff. That felt, in my opinion, the most visual representation of how it would feel,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
especially in a sci-fi aesthetic. And yeah, I think the reveals of who they were fighting, the stakes, the music, the ominous feeling to it just tops it off for one of the best and most shocking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I was surprised when I first watched that on how dark the Clone
Yeah.
Wars can get. And I think
Mhm.
this is the peak and prime example of why and how
I
it
think Umbara deserves its own podcast, in all honesty. I
does.
think we've got to touch on that
I
soon.
can't wait to touch. We're gonna do those clone arcs where we just
Yeah.
talk about our favorite Clone Wars arcs, and it's such a good arc, and
Yeah.
it's got layers to it, and it's just Rex in it is honestly the best. Like
Mhm.
that solidifies Rex as one of the top characters of the franchise, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
absolutely.
and it
I
starts from
think
here.
I think Imbara to me feels so like what you said with the representation. It feels so much
Mm.
like what George Lucas inspired the original stuff to be about,
Yep.
like reflecting real life war. It feels like there's so many tactics going on.
Oh
And
yeah,
even with the different locations and how the battles split up, how
it's
Obi-Wan's
insane.
leading one charge towards the
Mm.
capital, Anakin's leading another, and then Pong Krell is. So, and just, yeah, I agree. It wasn't on my list, surprisingly,
Oh
because
really?
I
Oh
forgot about it.
damn.
But I was very like thinking about it. It
Yeah.
is definitely fantastic,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's yeah one of the best ones for
It's
sure.
my
For
favorite
sure.
animated one. That's
Yeah.
my favorite animated. So we've already got rid of my favorite animated battle and my favorite live action battle. So
What's left on
boom,
your list?
pop them off. Nah, I've got some goodies.
Got some goodies. All right. I'm don't know if I'm taking your next one, but this was probably no, it wasn't the first big battle that we saw. It is a great big battle in a really underrated movie, the Battle of Geonosis.
That is how is it how is it possible for like three of them to like actually Umbara wasn't on yours, but yeah, that's literally the second one on my list that I've written down.
Sorry, sorry. Yeah, Battle of Geonosis. It's the
Uh,
first time we've ever seen that many Jedi
yeah,
on a screen. It's the start of the Clone Wars. It's a monumental
it is
moment.
the peak.
And
Mm.
like when I think of the Battle of Geonosis, my mind normally goes to the Colosseum. That's the most probably
Yep.
iconic bit. But also, there's bits kind of leading up to the Dooku versus Yoda and Anakin and
Yeah.
Obi-Wan fight of the clones using the laser things to shoot
Heavy
down
artillery.
separatist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there's like Jedi charging on the droids in the fields as well.
Through the
And
smokes.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
When I think of Geonosis, and this is we'll touch on Battlefront 2 or
Mm.
Battlefront 3 if it's ever going to happen
Yeah.
in another podcast.
Mm.
But they did the Geonosis update and map so well in that game. And so
Mm.
every time I play Geonosis,
You
I
thought
think of the movie. And when I watch the movie, I think,
you think
oh,
of that.
I know this is in the game. So it's just, I don't think it's like as good as the Scarif one. That
Mm.
was just perfect all around. But this one, it's so monumental in terms
Yep.
of what it represents for the galaxy, what
Mm.
we saw on screen with all the Jedi and the arrival of the clones
Mm.
and yeah, the start of the Clone Wars and what it leads to. So I really think
Uh,
that it is a top three battle of the Star Wars franchise.
I think the only thing that lowers that, in my opinion, even though it's on my list, is how it didn't go for a long duration when it
Yeah.
came to the clone like aspect battle of it. I
Hmm.
think they kind of well, obviously runtime. I feel like if that movie was made today, it would be longer because a
Yeah.
lot more movies nowadays are starting to push the
It
boundary
would be
of
made into a 6 episode TV show.
yeah, literally. Like the whole I think I agree with you. The only other aspect that when my mind thinks of Geonosis, and this is just for like those Clone Wars fans kind of out there, is the scary parasite bug thing from the Clone Wars.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? I always think of that for some reason. I don't know why. In the mines of Geonosis, this underneath the rocky terrain. But I think this reason why obviously we both did initially have it in our list is because of just the introduction of the Jedi like Colosseum fight, and
Yeah.
then obviously Yoda coming in clutch with his clones, and even us as the viewers, they're like, oh, the clone army. They didn't like really authorize this, and it just this is the start of like the kind of the sinister plot that
Hmm.
Palpatine really planned from the get go, and it's just really cool to see visually, and you're still hyped up every time you see them come in on those gunships.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I agree, it's a great one. Um,
I'm
one,
very worried you're about to take my last one.
yeah, honestly, I am gonna spice things up a little bit because you have taken two out of my five that I have down already. So
I'm sorry.
I'm I'm going to go for my underrated one now. For all those who are listening, including Cooper. I do not know if you're going to actually remember this or even recall it. However, when my mind thinks of Star Wars battles, I think of this one purely because of how underrated and how actually a lot of people don't like this start of this. Um, they don't like this battle because it started off season 4 of the Clone Wars. It is the Water War.
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
In now, let me get into this because I'm gonna have to do some reasoning with this.
Yeah, please.
One of my favorite Jedi of all time is Kit Fisto, and he shines in this. He is underwater, kicking butt and taking names with his shirt off, with his six-pack out, just absolutely mowing down. What's it called? This Seps, and also I forgot the enemy name though. This is the only bit I have against it. The whole fight and the whole war begins with the killing of the Mon Cala king and leader. So then that whole starts a conflict, obviously, and then you got the prince, and eventually at the end of the arc, he becomes the leader because he takes out the evil shark man. And so, yes, it does have stereotypical kind of, oh, we've got fish people. Who's going to be the villain? Shark.
Yeah.
Like simple premise. However, it mixed politics with what's it called? Padme. It had Padme politics with Anakin, Ahsoka, Kit Fisto, all doing their bit underwater. And then they also, in the second episode of this battle, they needed the Gungans' help to come in, and you had Gungan warriors fighting within the water. And I just think visually, this kind of war made for a cool aesthetic because there was no cover. You're in the water, it's just open sea, open ocean. So you had like different kind of choreographed fights and a lot more stakes, in my opinion, because you had kind of a scenario and an environment which is not typical for the Jedi, and even like Ahsoka and Anakin, they're not really like made for that kind of aesthetic. And people didn't like this because they thought it tried to shove in too many plot elements to begin the season off. And people complained that, oh, you have a water episode in the Mon Cala and you have your villain being a shark. That's so generic. But it's just cool. It's niche and cliche, but I loved it. It gave for cool visuals. Kit Fisto changed his actual technique fighting within the water too, which is like a little subtlety thing. And he also is obviously can breathe underwater. So it was his domain and territory. And for such an underrated Jedi and for a whole cool underwater war, you don't get to see that often in Star Wars. How many times can you say you've seen an underwater war in
Yeah.
Star Wars? Like,
In Star Wars, not often. No.
in Star Wars. Like, so I think this is one of the most severely underrated wars because it's so many other ones, which I agree are probably better than this, but this has always been imprinted in my head because of how different and unique it is. It gives you a different aesthetic, it gives you a different premise, and it's just a cool kind of like little mini story that has a really significant battle in it, in my opinion. So I have to give it credit where credit is due, and I think it deserves a spot in my top 3.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I don't agree, but that's just because I
fair
haven't.
enough.
When I last saw it, it's probably gone back a couple of years now.
Oh yeah, it's
Here's the best way I can describe Waterwar
mm,
for me. Every time I go to watch a Clone Wars episode in season 4 and I see Waterwar, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna
yes.
keep scrolling down.
Everyone does that. I don't know why. It is so cool though.
I
Like,
will say the Disney Plus thumbnails that they do for the episode, I
mm,
remember them pretty well. The ones for
yeah.
the Water War aren't very
Oh,
enticing.
it's just what's it called? The Mon Cala, like
Yeah.
in flock. Like,
There's one of Anakin with his helmet on.
helmet
It
on.
looks really
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. No, I just think it is an underrated war and one that you don't like. I want more underwater wars or even just ocean wars in general to begin with. I think it's a cool aesthetic and makes it harder for the people who are in it.
Okay, fair
Simple as
enough.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm surprised that I've gone through my list and none have been taken, but I guess I did go
Yeah.
first. So,
Yes.
um, you did mention at the start,
Mm,
you think you had the best animated battle. I'm not
mm.
disagreeing. And continuing on with my one, I had Battle of Geonosis, which was the
Yep.
start of the Clone Wars. This
Hmm.
one, my third favorite battle, ends the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Siege of Mandalore.
Yeah.
It was the literal climax of the Clone
Mm,
Wars.
mm,
It was what every episode, including Water War, including Umbara, was leading up to. And I don't think it disappointed. I think on terms of what actual combat we get, I feel like we don't get to see a lot of it in the actual episode.
mm.
Sorry,
That's my
episodes.
yeah.
But what we do see is really cool, and even the expanded stuff we get with Ahsoka,
Mm,
like in the Ahsoka show, showing that she was out there and fighting the Mandalorians as well. Like that was really cool because we
mm,
didn't really see that. But
mm,
I guess with animation you can do a lot more visually, and I
mm,
think that artistically it's a very nice battle to look at.
mm.
And similar to Scarif, there's different levels of stuff going on. There's obviously the fighting that's going on in the sky with the ships. There's stuff on the kind of platforms. Is that the right word to use? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
And
so.
then
Yeah.
there's the stuff happening down in the sewers or whatever they're called.
Mm,
Um, and I think it all works really well. And like I said with Geonosis, it's a monumental battle because it is alluding, or it is pretty much the end of the Clone Wars. It is the
mm.
last battle, maybe minus Coruscant,
That's what I
that
was. Yeah.
is like the last major battle between the Republic and I mean it's not the Separatists, but with the Republic and the
Mm,
clones. So I think that
mm,
that's got to count for something. I don't know. I think that what I really like about the Siege of Mandalore is that it ties a lot of things together. It ties together Ahsoka's journey and where she's come from and where she's leading or going to from here. Same
mm,
as Maul, you get the kind of hints that, he's gonna hide in the shadows, he's gathering his allies and he's hiding in the shadows until the whole mess is gone. And you
mm.
get some brilliant stuff from like Maul about, he doesn't even want to, when he's facing death, he
Yeah.
wants to die because he doesn't want to be a part of what's going on in the galaxy.
Afterwards, yeah.
Yeah. And then would you count?
Mm.
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't count.
I
I
probably
wouldn't
wouldn't.
count the stuff that happens in the last two episodes.
No,
No, I wouldn't. Okay.
no.
So still regardless, I think even the idea that they're breaking treaties of Mandalorian and Jedi involvement
Mm.
or Jedi invasion of the territory or whatever it was,
Yep.
I think there's a lot of elements that really work for me. And I think that it's just like I said, the climax of where this whole story goes and it's tied together really nicely. So
Okay.
it's one I really like.
Yeah, I love it too. However, I have gripes with it. I think, in my opinion, when I think of the end of the Clone Wars, think of the Battle of Coruscant because that's kind of where Palpatine's plan finally gets. I would like to say gets kind of on the foot of Revenge of the Sith, where we all know how that turns up. I think the only issue I have with the Battle of and the Siege of Mandalore is because it's the Mandalorians in the end. It's more like
Mm,
significant to them than it is to the Republic. Like in my opinion, the most Republic fight ever is probably like the Battle of Christophsis at
yep.
the start, where we see the Clone Wars kind of thing. I
Mhm.
just think like I think of more clone type. I know there was obviously clones and stuff, but it's not like you know what I'm trying to say. Like
I do know what you're trying to say.
it
Yeah.
doesn't feel as much as like a climax of the Clone Wars. It just feels like a large scale battle with the Mandalorians, basically. Like there is aspects to obviously this battle which makes it so iconic and being basically at the end, yes. But I think in terms of the Clone Wars as a whole, I can't. My mind doesn't go to like that battle as a
Okay.
Clone Wars battle
Fair
first.
enough. Yep.
But I do think it's good. Now, so when I was looking through my list and I realized making you go first, that is the reason, like probably why
Yeah.
some of the big boys are taken. However, there are two right now which I'm very tossed up between.
Hmm.
I'm going to talk about one of them, but I would like to mention, yeah, the Battle of Coruscant was obviously just mention it briefly. That was one of my honorable ones that I was probably going to talk about. However, I have to go with the Battle of Endor. Now,
Yeah.
the Battle of Endor. I was always someone who never really liked the Battle of Endor. But actually realizing and analyzing kind of what makes the Battle of Endor so great, in my opinion, is absolutely like what you were saying with the Clone Wars kind of Siege of Mandalore, the climax.
Yeah.
People remember the Battle of Endor for generations like afterwards. It
Yeah.
is known as like single-handedly the death of the Empire, the fall of the Empire. You know what I mean? Because that is when Death Star blew up. Okay. How is it not?
No, no. I think it's the start of the end. I don't think it was the definitive end.
No, but like no, but that's the whole point of all these stuff filling in the gaps. The Empire was still around, just not as strong, and they
Well,
became a rising threat in obviously Mandalorian and stuff again now. But entirely, that is when the fall of the Empire occurred. Obviously, Palpatine has his contingency plans. You cannot argue this.
I've got a battle that argues that.
Which one? Are you going to say the Battle of Jakku, aren't
I
you?
am, yes.
Ah, damn it.
That
Okay.
was the last official meeting between the Empire and the Republic in
No,
canon.
but yes, yes, true. But I don't count, like, if you think about it, everyone, like, always refers the fall of the Empire to the Battle of Endor. Even characters themselves in the sequel trilogy referred to that. They didn't
I
refer to the
I
Battle of
think
Jakku.
Endor was more monumentous because the Death Star was involved, whereas
And the
Jakku,
Palpatine
it was
died.
just about eliminating the rest of the Navy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's just okay. You can talk about that in your one. I just think that's not as
Yeah, yeah.
impactful and influential because this is where the second Death Star gets destroyed and the Emperor dies. You know what I mean? And Darth Vader is gone. He sacrifices himself for Luke. Luke saves the day, doesn't turn evil. You've got the Battle of so as you were saying with the Battle of Scarif, it had layers. You had down the bottom on the Endor planet itself. You had Ewoks helping the Rebel Alliance fight the stormtroopers when the stormtroopers clearly had the advantage. So
Hmm.
you saw odds, like what's it called? Odds against the rebels,
Hmm.
which is classic trope which we all love to see. You had space battle with Lando flying the Millennium Falcon, which is just so good. I love seeing Lando fly that. And then you also get to see cool scout troop. You get to see cool scout troopers. You get to see what's it called the internal. I don't know what you want to call it. It's not the trench run, but the Millennium Falcon run in this one in the Death
Oh
Star.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know what you
Yep.
would call it, but that is so memorable, even in the Lego games where you're flying
Yeah,
around
it is.
to get your torpedoes and stuff.
Yep.
This solidified. This was also the first movie I watched, Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
So having the Battle of Endor at the end be such a climax and kind of, in my opinion, it is the fall of the Empire because everything else afterwards is just the remaining leftovers. You might as well just call it the Battle of the Leftovers after, because in the end, they are just what's remaining, but they're not the most impactful threats. You have Darth, Emperor, and the second Death Star gone at this point in time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That is what was terrorizing the galaxy for so long. And it's such a beautiful aesthetic of the Endor planet too, by the way. It is, I love the ambient sound. I never ever like forget those kind of, I don't want to try and imitate it. I'll just butcher it. But you know the sounds I'm thinking of. When you're playing Battlefront, they're in there too. It's just a
Yeah.
classic kind of like ambient noises in the jungle. It's just so good. And I think, in my opinion, this is what solidified kind of the time period we are experiencing a lot of our Disney Plus shows in after obviously Return of the Jedi. And whether I may or may not like them trying to say like they were building like the Empire was still around, they were building up this massive threat with Moff Gideon and everything. I don't really like to connect those two together because I like to think that there are just independent factions believing that they are going to be like the new order kind of thing. I don't like to call them, oh, that's still the Empire, just rising to power again. No, not really. They weren't really. That's the whole point, is to try and show that they never really got to power in the First Order. Eventually, was the ones who took over the galaxy again. But I think this is the peak moment of the kind of prequels and the originals kind of in a nice
And the
consolidated way,
story.
even if you don't agree with the second Death Star being a really good plot, uh, what's it called, device again, because they only used that in two movies prior. But I still think that it's just such a fulfilling moment with all the music at the end and everyone seeing the explosion of the Death Star. It's just like, wow, we are finally at peace, or at least for like 2 weeks,
Yep.
you know? So yeah, that's
Okay.
why I pick it.
Look, I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I love the Battle of Endor as well. I think it's actually one of the more underrated ones.
Yeah, I think it is.
I do think that it's hard to compare it because I feel like the ground warfare is not as
It's not as prominent.
intense
Yeah, it's not as
as a lot
prominent.
of other battles.
Mm.
But the only reason I brought up Jakku is because
Jakku, I hate Jakku so much.
here's the thing again. How many times on this podcast is the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign going to come up? It is,
Probably,
you mentioned at
yeah,
the start, like we always chat about The Last Jedi and the Battle of
Umbara,
Umbara. This
yeah,
gets up bought the exact amount, same amount of time.
a weird amount
Weird,
of times.
yeah.
Yeah,
That to me, just visually, seeing all those Star Destroyers there against all like the rebels, that to me symbolizes the fall of the Empire right there. The Endor one to me, then this is me, not you, and
mm,
I respect
mm,
your opinion and
yep,
everything.
yep.
But to me, the Endor one is more overthrow the Emperor. Vader is redeemed, it's end of his story, and the Death Star's gone. The major weapon of power is gone. So that was the first,
Weapons.
like to quote Sister Sage in the recent
Oh
season of The
no,
Boys. first pebble down the mountain.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's I know it was a bit more
It's
monumentous than a
yeah.
pebble, but it's that kind of ideology, I guess, that
Mm,
it was the first of the
yeah,
main collapse. But
yeah,
again, I
yeah.
do understand that Endor is to you is the end of the Empire.
Mm,
And to a lot of people, Return of the Jedi is that's done. So
mm,
I respect all
yep,
opinions. It's just for me, I think that oh well, I just said. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Wow, there's some good battles in there, wasn't there?
I like to mention
Yeah.
Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
Going back to it quickly. Like, how many people probably have like never played the game? So
Probably a lot.
you're trying to tell me that, that people are thinking, yep, Battle of Jakku's the one that ended the Empire, not that big movie called Return of the Jedi.
No, no, no. There was books as well.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're gonna read the aftermath books and everything too. Yeah, like this is a just a that's a bulk standard for the most average watcher and consumer of stuff.
Mm.
No, I'm kidding. Battle of Jakku's okay. I think it just also it is a lot more sequel in my opinion. Obviously, I think
Interesting.
I like to think it's a more of a sequel type era also, which is I mean, this is such a divisive thing. Like, do you count the Mandalorian as a original trilogy? Do you count you know, I don't know. It's that weird in between period. I think
Yeah.
that deserves its own. What's the period called? The New Republic period, I guess.
Yeah. Reign of the
Like,
New, not Reign of the New Republic. It's just called the New Republic.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, pretty weird time period. I feel like it's a weird blend of some sequels and some OT. But these battles that we've discussed are very good ones, and I feel like alone some of these deserve their own kind of video and just deep
Absolutely.
analysis of it because it's a lot of the ones that we said are the most impactful within their own kind of area. Like
Mm.
it could have it could have changed. So if the outcomes didn't occur the way they did, it would change the galaxy or at least some parts of where they were fighting dramatically.
Yep.
And I would like to reinstate my opinion. We need more water battles. I want more water battles. Give me some more water battles. All right, that's my
All right. Well, we've made our position very clear. We want more water battles in Star
battles.
Wars.
Yes,
Skeleton Crew, bring it on.
bring on.
All right. Thanks for checking out this week's podcast. Appreciate it as always, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.
See ya.